All right, everybody. Welcome to Coding with Bryan. This is oh crap. What episode is this? I don't know. This is season awesome episode something. We've done X number of episodes of Coding with Bryan over the last I'm gonna take these off for a minute so I don't Princess Leia up so much. Over the last sort of so and so, and we don't really number the shows at all. We just kind of name them at the end of the show after what we felt like with the show. I think one was called Awesome Unicorn, I believe. Other one was McDonald's Pancakes. I feel like numbers constrain me. They box me in, and I don't like that. So, of course, this is a live call-in show, if you so please. If you would like to call in, hold off for the moment, but later on in the show, we'll call in via Skype. I got a little Skype machine here off to my left, and it's up top there, right up there. Bryan Lunduke, that's the Skype ID. Set that up. If you are going to call in, do a Skype test call first. That way, we make sure it works before you call in. Otherwise, you call in, and I'll be like, "Hey, Joe's on the line," and then Joe Schmo is like, "Can't hear him. We can't hear what Joe Schmo's saying," and then he just feels like a doofus, and it goes on like that. All right, so this is kind of a very special episode of Coding with Bryan. We're going to be talking entirely, at least at the start of the show, about Illumination. Now, let me bring up my shot here. Chris says, "Check this out." Boom! Look at this. Those are shots. That's what we got here. So, what we're going to be doing is going over what Illumination is, what the Illumination Software Creator can do, how it does it, maybe a quick little tutorial, some run-throughs. I'll take your guys' questions on it, and we'll kind of dive in from there. Now, Illumination has only been out officially in beta form for about, I'd say 5 days now. We released the first beta on, I believe it was Tuesday. It's Sunday now, so it'll have its 1 week anniversary this next Tuesday. And what Illumination is, well, here, let me bring up a shot so I can show you a little better. It is a mechanism for creating, I'll bring up a little example project to make it easier to display. For creating desktop, mobile, or web applications without writing any code. Basically, you can lay out visually your application's logic and create your user interface and hit a run button or hit a build button, and it will build for whatever platform you desire. Presently, it supports desktop applications built using Python, and as well as Python internet tablet applications powered by Mamo. These little guys. I love these little guys. I just want to say that right now. Great little tablets. I got a little NA10 here. Awesome little guy. So that's what it currently supports in the current beta that's out there. The coming betas will be adding support for building websites with basically very JavaScript-heavy websites that will essentially act like desktop applications. So within a single website, you will have multiple windows. If you design those multiple windows, basically each web application page will be its own individual application with multiple windows, all kind of built with the same code that you used to create your Python applications or your desktop or Mamo applications. So that's kind of the idea behind Illumination, is that everything's abstracted out for you. You never have to write any code. You just design visually how you want your application to work step by step, and then can export that project to the raw code for whatever platform you're going to. There's no virtual machine for it. That's kind of a key bit here. Some people have likened, what we're trying to do with Illumination to say something like Java, where we're saying, here's a ability to write your code once and run it anywhere across multiple platforms. And that's just ridiculous. There's problems with that. While Java is great, and Java has its places and its distinctly valuable uses, in order to be able to run an application written in Java on a platform, you have to port the entire Java virtual machine to that platform, which is a lot of work. Now, luckily, Sun and everyone else has worked hard to make sure that happens for as many platforms as possible, but there are issues relating there. What if there are issues? And here's a great example. A couple of years back, there was some uncertainty there because of the licensing of Java. A lot of Linux distributions didn't have Java out of the gate. What this means is that you could create a Java application for a bunch of platforms, but whether or not people are going to install and run it on Linux, uncertain. However, if Java could, in the compiler, actually export Python or a C or a C++ KDE app or something along those lines, then that application would then run natively on that platform and not require a Java virtual machine and get around licensing issues and generally be more resource efficient, as well as just looking and feeling like a native application for the platform. So what we've decided to do with Illumination is there's no virtual machine. Illumination simply spits out, through the use of awesome magic, the source code to run on whatever platform you want. We started with Python and GTK. The reason we started with Python and GTK is that it runs on so many platforms. Now, people might say, well, wait a minute, Bryan, isn't Python an interpreted language, and are you trying to get away from interpreted languages? No. We're trying to embrace as many languages, frameworks, and platforms as possible. And that will include runtime engines and virtual machines, including the Java virtual machine. People should have the option to develop for whatever platform and framework set that they want to develop for. People should not be limited in that regard. One of the other great benefits of doing Python and GTK applications is no compiling is required. And if you're on Linux, you already have Python, you already have GTK, you already have the ability to run these applications out of the gate on every Linux distribution on the planet. And it's seriously, if you're running a Linux distribution without Python or GTK installed, what are you doing? What are you doing? Okay, I guess maybe a KDE-based distro might not have all the GTK libraries, but most of you do already anyway. So what that means is then you can, boom, run the platform, run the applications right away. Here's a good example. Here's a very, very simple application. All it does is present a bunch of dialog boxes. It's basically a quiz. And watch what happens when I click run up top here. Here, let me go ahead and give you a better shot here. When I click run, boom, the application's already running. It says 3 questions, get ready. Sky is blue. Yeah, sky's blue. Ocean's blue. Yeah, ocean is blue. Houses are made of pudding. Of course, houses are made of pudding. Oh, I got a score of 2 out of 3. All right, so the thing to note there is that it can run immediately without having to wait. So testing your application is an immediate thing. You don't have to sit back, wait for a completely new build and wait, a few seconds to a few minutes for your build to complete, simply to be able to test out the changes. You can make a few tweaks, move around a few blocks, add a few more blocks of functionality, hit run, and boom, you're trying out your sample code. That's great. That's very beneficial. But of course, that's where you can't really end there. You can't stop and say, okay, well, the end-all be-all of software creation is to visually create Python applications. While Python is great and GTK is great, and this will run on Linux and Windows and Mac OS 10 and now allows us to build for the Nokia Memo-based tablets, like the N810 and the N900. That's awesome, but it only gets us part of the way there. So that's why for the next platform, we've chosen to go with a web-based platform because it is so distinctly different. So delivering both a Python-based mobile application and a web page that's considerably a very Ajax-y, Web 2.0-y, rich internet web type web page, all from the same code base, basically demonstrates how different of a platform's, how many different types of platforms you can target from the same project type. And so we decided to do that first. Of course, in the future, and when I say in the future, I mean fairly short-term future, we want to be targeting as many platforms as possible. And that includes everything from, Android and WebOS to C++ Qt applications, and realistically even C# WinForm applications as well. We don't want to limit what people do with this. And it's all going to depend on what the demand is. If our users are demanding that we come out with, an Android target next, that's going to be what we work on next. We've already started development on, Adobe Flex applications, so you can develop a Flex website or a Adobe Air desktop application. And that's kind of gotten rolling already. And we're kind of just going to go from there. We're kind of feeling it out at this point of which ones are next, but those are some of the likely ones. And we definitely are welcoming all the feedback. Now, if you want to grab this and kind of play along, head over to radicalbreeze.com. And you can grab beta 4 of Illumination for either Linux or Windows. It runs on both right now. A Mac version will eventually come. It is in development. However, it is a lower priority at the moment than getting the additional platforms and additional features built into Illumination that we're looking to have. Simply because if you have a Mac, honestly, odds are you're probably already running some sort of either virtual machine or boot camp and are either running Linux or Windows in some way. I hate to do that to all of you Mac guys. I know you guys would like a native client, and we hear you. We're working on it, but it's just not the top priority at the moment. It will come. Hopefully it'll come before the 1.0 ship, but we shall see on that. Also depends on demand. All right. Now let's just kind of dive into it here. So here we go. This is Illumination. This is a very, very simple application, but let's go ahead and start over and start a new project here. So you start a new project in Illumination, and you start it with 2 blocks. You'll notice 2 blocks in the upper left and lower right here by default. One is the application with a little launched event here, and the other one is a quit application with a little quit method here. Now, here's the thing. Illumination works by taking blocks and dragging lines between the blocks, such as this. Boom. Oops. You actually have to drag it to the right spot, not, yeah, just drop it off into nowhere land. All right, there we go. So you notice now there's a line drawn between these 2 blocks. Now, all that does is say that after this block here, run this block here. That's it. There's no data being passed between the 2 blocks. It is simply a method for saying, do this after this. That's it. There's nothing else to it. Now, each individual block is 100% self-contained. They can exist by themselves without any other blocks. Now, here, let's start adding a few blocks and actually show you a little bit more of what we're talking about. Let's start with the message box. This is a fairly simple thing, and it's kind of a hello worldy thing to do. So here's a message box block. We just kind of dragged it over here from this list of potential blocks, dropped it on here, and selected it. Now, off to the right, you'll notice some properties. The top property here is a little checkbox that says custom message. Bottom one is a checkbox that says use variable. Well, since we don't have any variables in our project yet, we'll get to that shortly, we'll go ahead and do a custom message. Something that says hello world. And then we click run. Oh, you got to save your project. All right, I'll save my project. We'll go ahead and just save that to the desktop as a little hello world project here. Got to save your project before running it. All right. Now, it didn't do anything. Why didn't it do anything? Because there was no blocks linked up. All right, so when launch occurs, let's go like this, whoop, and draw a line from here down to the open of message blocks. Okay, great. Now, what happens when we close the message box? Well, we want the application to quit. So let's go ahead and draw another line from the closed of the message box to the quit of the quit application. Very, very simple. Makes a certain amount of sense. Now let's click run. Boom. Hello, world. Well, thanks. Close. And application has quit. Nice and simple. But that doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that block. Now, what I really would like to do is I would like to have a custom variable that then I can then display in a message box. So let's say, let's call this my message. Notice here there's a variable list in the lower left-hand corner, and there's some plus and minus buttons down there. A plus button adds a new variable, minus button deletes the selected variable. And when you create a new variable, you can call it whatever you want. The variable type, there's 2 types of variables presently, text and number. And now if you're a dev, you're used to strings and char stars and integers and floats and doubles. Not in Illumination. In Illumination, things are much, much simpler. You either have some text or you have some numbers. Now, of course, there's more types of variables coming, such as those that'll handle pictures. But for the moment, it's just text and numbers. So then we create that. Boom, it says my message. This shows you that it's a text message. and we can then work from there. Now, we have, well, let's put a message box here because we're going to want to display that somehow. Now, what's contained within that message, though? Well, now, if you want to set that message to something specific, look here in the upper left-hand corner, there's a little drop-down box. You select it, and it says user interface, text, numbers, logic, and conversion. All of those are various just types of blocks that you can utilize. It's pretty simple to do. So let's say I want to handle text right now. You select that, and now there's 4 available: set text, combined text, lowercase, and uppercase. Pretty straightforward stuff. All right, so let's use the set text one here. So I drag set text onto my project here. So I want to set the text. Now on the right-hand side, it shows you the properties for that particular block. I want to set this variable, so I'm going to select my message because that's the one I created. That's the one I want to set. And I can set that either to some custom text that I can then type in here or to the contents of another variable. Well, in this case, I just want to set it to some custom text. And this is, let's just say Linux is rad. Let's just call it that. All right, so now we want that to run when the application is launched. So I draw a line between that and the set text. Boom. So now this application does nothing but set the contents of the my message variable to Linux is rad. Now let's go ahead and draw another line from the done event of set text to the open of the message box. And now instead of using a custom message in this message box, let's go ahead and check use variable and select my message. And we'll go ahead and draw a line down the quit application here. Now we've got a little bit more complex application. There's still no real logic going on, but boom, Linux is rad message box displays when we hit run. All right, nice and simple, very, very straightforward. Awesome, right? Okay, now let's say, what do we want to do more than that? Let's say you want to make it uppercase. So let's make it uppercase. You want to set the variable my message to the uppercase of my message. So then let's go ahead and draw a line to uppercase and draw a line from uppercase to message box. And oh, whoops. I now realize I've got a line between the set text and the message box and the set text and the uppercase. Now, what's going to happen there? Well, realistically, I don't get the result I want. It gives me the normal Linux is rad that I already created. Why is that? All right, so you can have as many lines drawn between the blocks as you want. You can link them up. You can have each block going out to 1,000 different other blocks and vice versa. The issue there is you can't define the order that they run in. So in this case, the set text has a link to both the message box, open event, and the setting of the uppercase text. Which one's going to run first? You don't really know. You can't really count on the order in that case. If you want to make sure that you have things running in a set order, you need to chain them together. So in this case, I have one link I don't want in there. I don't want the set text to directly call the message box. So I'll right-click on the set text block, and I can remove the block itself or remove one of the links. So there's one done that calls the open link. Boom, I'm going to get rid of that one. Now, if I run it, Linux is rad, all in uppercase, which is really the correct way to say Linux is rad. It should be in uppercase. So that gives you a little example of exactly how that works. So let's go ahead and pop open another project. I don't need to save that one right now. There's a couple of example projects sitting up on the website. So let's go back to the quiz game example, just because it's a nice example of a little more complicated project that doesn't really do a whole heck of a lot, but it does enough to give you an example of what's possible. First thing you'll notice is there's this little yellow block down here on the left-hand side. That's a little comment block, basically. If you're a developer, that's a comment. We call them notes. If you click on the note icon up top, it pops in a new note, and you can type in whatever you want. Hello. That's what I'm typing in right there. All right. It's pretty straightforward. That has nothing to do with your actual code that gets exported from Illumination. That's just stored in your project and just for your own personal reference. All right, so let's kind of walk through exactly how this works here. So this little quiz application, again, it just pops up 3 questions, get ready. It asks you basically 3 yes or no questions. And when it's done, it shows you your final score. So how do we do that? So first of all, it has a number of variables that we're working with here. There's 2 number variables and 2 text variables, and we'll show you what each of them does as we go along. Excuse me, I just had a little burpy burp. That was for everyone in the world to listen to. All right, so the set text variable, this first one does is it takes the text variable we've got and sets it to our final score. It says final score out of 3 is, and then it doesn't say anything else. Basically, we're just initializing that since we're going to need to use it later. The next one is we set this number to 1. Now, we're calling this the working variable. The reason that we're doing that will become apparent very, very shortly. Then we display this message that just says 3 questions, get ready, and then we move on. Now, the next block we hit is a confirmation dialog block. It's very similar to a message box, except that it shows both a yes and no button. Then we can set custom messages in there, and there's little yes or no outputs from the confirmation dialog. Now, depending on what we expect the answer to be, whether it should be yes or no, we either move directly on to the next question or we add 1 to the score. So we basically set the variable score to the sum of score plus working. And what this basically means is we're incrementing the score by 1 every time a correct answer is hit. Then we move on to the next dialogue. Once we're done with all 3 of these dialogues that basically do the same thing over and over again, we hit the convert number to text block. That basically takes the score variable that was a number and converts it to text and places it in final score. So basically, if the score was 3, it creates a text that is the number 3. Then we combine text. We take final score, which is a text, and combine it with final score, which was, or final working, which was that little final score out of 3 equals that we initialized earlier, and adds on to the end the actual score. Then we display the message box using that variable and quit. It's very, very straightforward, so it's kind of worth checking out from that point of view. But what if you want something a little bit more graphical, let's say? Okay, well let's do a window here. All right, so if you go to the user interface section of blocks, there is a window block right up top. Drag it onto your project, link the application launched to the window open. And I'm going to go ahead and connect up the window closed to the quit application. That way it works properly. Now, if I go ahead and hit run, of course, I gotta save it again. Always have to save a new application. Boom. Now you notice I have a window, but it is completely empty, and that is just no bueno for me. So what you can do is just go ahead and double click on this window block and boom, bring open the window editor. Now the window editor in Illumination is kind of an interesting little guy. You've got your standard window right here, and you can do whatever you want with that. You can resize it and put controls on it and design your application however you want to. However, you know what? I'm going to tell you the awesome thing later. We'll get to that in a moment. So let's go ahead and add a button here. Let's put this button over here, and then over on the right hand side, you'll notice some properties for it. And let's change the text of it to just say okay. That's all it says. Nice and simple. Now let's put a label and a text box on this window. And let's not worry about doing anything too fancy here. Just let's say what is your favorite color? And then let's put in a little text in the text box here. Let's say that this is your favorite color. Let's just leave it blank for now. All right, so let's go ahead and close that. Now, when you run it, of course, you have your little application here. You can type in this text box and you can click this button, but it does not do anything. Well, let's make it do something, because that would be awesome if it did something. Well, now first, let's say all we want to do right now is show a message box with the text that you entered in. Of course, that's a pretty simple project. Come on, that's super duper simple, but you know, we got to start somewhere. You got to walk before you can run. All right. So first of all, in order to do that, we've got to have a variable to store that text in. So let's create a new variable. My favorite
color is now a text variable. All right, so let's create that one. Now we've got that my favorite color down there. Great. Now let's what do we need to do? Well, we need to get the contents of that text box and stick it in that variable. Okay, sure. So here's a get text box block that we can just kind of drag and drop onto here. And well, basically here's it selected. And then here's the properties for it. On this window, well, let's select my window. Okay, window. Put the text from this. Well, I want to put the text from text box in this variable. Well, I want to put it right there. Okay. So I want to do that whenever the button is clicked. Boom. All right, now that's done. Now let's just put up a message box that just displays the contents of that variable. Simple, I know, but kind of gets you started here. All right, now, and when it's finished, you know what? We'll just let it go. That way you can push as many times as you want. We'll run it. Type. My favorite color is orange. And Chris's keyboard was not working quite right. By the way, in the studio here, Chris has very strange keyboards. And then we click that button, boom, orange. Now, that's pretty simple. Doesn't do a whole heck of a lot, but it gives you an example of what you can do with the UI. Now, and in fact, you could actually do it a little bit differently. So if you instead wanted every time that you change the text to set the block, let's say there's a text box changed event. That means that every time someone types into that text box, you could have the get text block run. So there we go. So now that runs every time someone types into it. Then whenever the button is clicked, simply display the message. Then of course this sets it every time, and the message is displayed. So there's a lot of different ways to accomplish the same task within Illumination. It's all kind of up to you and how you like your particular style. Now, here's where things start to get funky. And I was talking about the window editor previously. In order to understand it, we've got to look at the project menu. Under the project menu, you can choose to run project, which all that does is create a Python desktop version of your project and launches it for you. It's an easy way to test out your application as you're building it. But below it, you'll notice there's two currently enabled build project items. One, build project Python GTK desktop, and build project Python GTK Memo tablet. Now, when you build, let's go ahead and build the desktop. What it just did is it went ahead and built the project for you, created your application source code that can then be runnable because it's a Python application, puts it in a subfolder right next to your project file. So if you have a project file like me, I have it sitting on the desktop. So I created a new folder on my desktop that was called my new application, which is over here is the name of your application, which you can change to whatever you like, Python desktop. And it puts the actual application and every file I need to distribute with the application in that folder. Now, of course, because it's just a Python application, there's just one singular file. Now, the same is true if I go ahead and build project Python GTK Memo. It does the same thing. The only difference here is it also includes an instructions file for how to properly distribute applications on Memo Internet tablets, and then, of course, the Python application to do it with. But now, this kind of begs one of the questions. One of the questions here is, if you're developing an application for both desktops and mobile applications and web applications, your user interface is going to be different. Even if you want the application to do the same thing, even if you want this very, very simple pop open a window and when you click a button, it displays a message type of application, it's not going to be the same exact UI on all platforms. It might be very, very close, but it's not going to be exactly the same. So how do we handle that? Well, here's how we do it. Notice on the window editor at the very top of the screen, here, let's go full screen here so you can see everything. There is a drop-down box that says Design For, and currently, by default, it shows Python GTK Desktop. If you click it, it shows two other options, Python GTK Memo and PHP JavaScript website. If you select one of the other ones, boom, it changes radically, and you're like, "Whoa, what just happened? I don't quite know what just happened. Everything changed on me." Well, everything changed because the exact same controls are being used. Your same button, text box, and label that you'd already put on your window are there. They're named the same. The only difference is their placement is reset, and their initial text may not necessarily be the same. The reason is you may want those in different places. You'll also notice that the window defaulted to a totally different size. The size it is defaulted to right now is in fact the default size for Nokia internet tablets. So this is unless you decide to resize it, which you are more than welcome to do, this is the size of a full screen Mamo internet tablet. Now, of course, you can just go ahead and lay it out however you like, and you're good to go. So that's kind of how that works. And of course, for the web side of things, who knows how you might want it laid out? You might want it in a completely different design. It's entirely up to you. But the great part is all the controls are exactly the same. You'll notice here, we'll go back to the block editor. The controls are the same. You do not change your blocks. You do not change your code at all. The only thing you change between the individual platforms is how you lay out the UI. That's it, and that's all. And that's kind of how it should be. As an individual UI comes on, let's just speak hypothetically for a second. Let's say we add the ability to support Android into the next release. Well, of course, an Android phone has an entirely different set of user interface requirements than a desktop application. You're going to want the same application, but it's going to be in a much smaller, more vertically aligned and horizontally squished screen, which is awesome, right? I mean, that's what you want, but you need to adjust the layout accordingly. And you don't want to have to maintain 5 separate projects with minor variances just to support a new platform. You want to be able to just hop in here. You're like, okay, great. The ability to make iPhone applications is now out in Illumination. I want to take my cool game that I'd already made, let's say a quiz game or a flashcard game or something, whatever it is you make, and you want to port it over to the iPhone. Great. So you just hop in here, hop into the various windows you've got, resize them and make sure they're all aligned to look good on the iPhone. Project, build iPhone, done. Now, of course, there's no iPhone support currently, but that is kind of an example of how that would work. Speaking of which, think about this for a second. There's been a lot of hubbub over the last, so many days about issues relating to creating iPhone applications with non-Xcode development tools. Apple has said explicitly they won't allow it. Now, we actually did on Coding with Bryan a little review of Runtime Revolution's Rev Mobile platform. Now, their whole idea there was that you could use Rev Mobile to build Runtime Revolution-based applications that were all kind of a hyper-talkish applications for Windows Mobile, for iPhone, for Mamo, etc. Now, once Apple came out and made their announcement, they made it very clear to the Runtime Revolution guys that Runtime Revolution-based iPhone applications would not be allowed into the store. This is a major bummer. However, what this means is a project like the Illumination Software Creator, the resulting applications would be allowed into the store because Illumination does not create a P code or compiled application. It creates the source code for the application to be compiled in or run in whatever tool set it is designed for, which means we could have it export Objective-C, Cocoa Touch iPhone applications that you would then load in Xcode and compile and run. Again, we do not, I'm going to make this very clear, have an iPhone version of the Illumination Software Creator currently. That is not one of the currently supported platforms. That is on our list of things to do, but that is just one example of why this approach gives so much more power. Now, I'm open for taking some calls on some of these items here. So again, up top there. Oh, my hand gets cut off if I go that far. Here, I'll go like this. Up there is my Skype ID. If you'd like to call and ask questions about Illumination or related topics, feel free to do so. Again, Skype ID is Bryan Lunduke, and feel free to hop on in and do that. I'll try and keep an eye over here on that, so I don't screw up too bad. And until then, I'm just going to kind of keep going with this. So the Ringmaster is asking, why does Illumination open Firefox when I hit build? That is a great question. I have absolutely no idea why it would open Firefox when you hit build. My only assumption would be that you have Firefox associated with either general folders or with Python files. Another item, Illumination Software Creator seems kind of a domain-specific language. You could implement exactly same features with Meta Edit Plus. Not really sure what you mean with that. That honestly doesn't mean a whole lot to me. But if you feel free to call in if you want to ask the question a little bit more in depth. All right, so before we take any calls, I guess we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about logic. So now, what if you create an application and you would like something a little bit more interesting? What if you would like, let's see, we got a little funky thing around the mouse cursor there. Oh, well, I'll live with it. What if you want an if statement? Well, let's drag one in. Let's see what happens. Because you need a little bit of logic in an application sometime. Am I right? Of course I'm right. All right, so let's say, let's start a new project here. Let's say we launch an if statement here, and we will do a message box for the if statement. We'll just do something really, really simple here. Let's take two numbers. Let's call this just number 1 as a variable type number, and let's create another one that just says variable type. Its variable name is just call it 2, and let's make it also a number. All right, and then basically we can say if this 1 is bigger than 2, if that's true, then we display this message box. If it's false, then we display a different message box. Nice and simple. So let's go ahead and initialize those numbers there, so we can just go over the number section. And here we go. So what we've got is number blocks. So we can, of course, set numbers, which let's go ahead and do that just to start with. Let's just set one number here. So let's set this variable of 1 to custom number. Let's just call this 10. We set this to 10. Nice and simple. Now, of course, 2, because we haven't set it to anything yet, is defaultly equal to 0. So let's go ahead and click all this up. Put this on the desktop, save it, go ahead and replace that old one. Okay, when we didn't display anything because we never set them. Okay, so if 1 is bigger than 2 is true, then let's say bigger and smaller. There we go. Bigger. Okay, yep, it is bigger. Okay, 1 is indeed bigger than the 2 variable because 1 is equal to 10 and 2 is equal to 0. Great. Well, now what if we want, let's say, 2 to be, let's say 2 is 15. Go ahead and link that up here. Now it should actually come out and say smaller. And let's go ahead and remove the direct link to the if statement. Smaller. Okay, very, very good. And of course, you can add in, subtract, multiply, divide, and remainder functions to kind of work with the numbers as you see fit. Okay, let's see. And I just got distracted by the chat room. Sorry about that, everybody watching the video. So anyway, that gives you kind of an example of what you can do there. Now, I've gotten some fairly cool projects in from people who have been who've been kind of working with the early beta of Illumination. One guy sent in a kind of a safe cracker game. I thought that was kind of cool. Another guy created this big, elaborate flashcard learning deal. It was almost ridiculous in how elaborate it was. I've been impressed. I've been impressed with what people have come up with so far. Now, you'll probably note, the idea is very simple, and working with these individual blocks is fairly simple. There's only X number of blocks. There's only a handful of them. So like number blocks, there's only currently 6 blocks that deal with numbers. On the user interface side, we've got about 6 blocks to work with is there as well. Now, as we go along, we keep adding more blocks. With each beta, we kind of add a few more. And the idea is that each block is rock solid, is completely ready to go out of the gate, and is able for anyone to use without any real issues. So I don't want people to say, okay, well, I want to display a message box and have some sort of a weird bugs and errors with the message boxes. I want it to be rock solid. So we've kind of focused on incrementally releasing features out there. So when Beta 1 came out, it was only available for Linux. It did not have the ability to edit the windows. It did not have any of the if-then statements. It was lacking a great deal of those features. Most of those features were already finished, but we just kind of wanted only to make sure that it was rock solid before moving on to the next step. So as at this point, though, with Beta 4 of Illumination, I feel like it's hit this point where it is both incredibly stable and able to be used to create real applications. There are limitations currently. There are no ability to read and write to files, you'll notice. So that's something. Now, any of you guys who have been following the development of Illumination for the last month or so will notice that I released screenshots that show the ability to open a file or save a file or open a picture and save a picture. That's because those blocks exist, but due to one bug or another, I wasn't comfortable with releasing them. The same is true with the in the logic area, the if-then block. I wasn't necessarily comfortable with our implementation of it. I didn't like the way the block looked. I do now, so we've gone ahead and released it. So we're doing it little bit by little bit as it becomes solid, ready, and releasable. Now, Illumination itself has been under development for about 2 years. And in fact, it was probably 99.9% finished a couple months back. And we've just kind of been putting the last bits of spit and polish on this and kind of getting it out there into everybody's hands. So it is available now. It is available as in a beta form. And until the 1.0 official version is released, we're selling it for I think it's $29. After that, it's going to hop up to $100. I know that's a bit pricey for some of you, but in the grand scheme of development environments, it's actually kind of cheap. So there is that. You look at other kind of rapid development environments, and they'll typically run a couple $100 for something. So we're kind of going with that in terms of pricing. We're definitely open to feedback on that, though. If you guys feel it's too high or, heaven forbid, too low, let us know, and we definitely respond. We're a very open development team, which, by the way, there is 2 individuals working on the development of Illumination to date, and that's likely to stay that way. We're a nice small little team here. So opening up to questions now. Feel free to hop on. Again, Skype, Bryan Lunduke. And I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Opinions, ideas, questions. Lay it on me. I'd love to hear it. And if no one hops on, I'm just going to talk for a little bit more about some of the ideas that we're doing with this. So, barring anyone hopping on the Skype, I know some of you want to. Kevin is asking in the chat room, Bryan, can you still drag boxes off the screen? In the Linux version, there's a bug where on some people's machines, and it doesn't seem to be everybody's, but there seems to be something going on with when you drag around boxes. Some people, when they unclick a box, basically they'll click and mouse down, and they'll stop dragging, and the box will keep dragging and follow the mouse. So if they stop dragging and then they click over here, over on the side next to the properties panel, the box will move off the screen to that area. That's obviously not very good. It doesn't happen on the Windows version. Doesn't seem to be happening for everyone on the Linux version either, but is a problem. So that's a bug. Definitely open to bug reports. People are sending bug reports to the email address, the Radical Breeze Webmaster email account. And we've kind of been responding to them as we go. If you follow my blog over at lunduke.com, whenever we release a new update to it, I post a new blog post with the release notes, with kind of what's new, what are some of the major bugs that were fixed, what new features were added, and every beta release has both new features and bugs fixed. Adam Fusion in the chat room is asking, is this supposed to be a replacement for VB? No, not at all. It's in fact nothing like Visual Basic. There is absolutely nothing Visual Basic-ish about Illumination Software Creator. I'm slightly insulted that you would ask that, man. No, I'm kidding. But no, there's nothing Visual Basic-ish about it. You don't write any code. There's no basic-ish code structure. The whole idea is that it is completely language agnostic. You create bits of functionality. You have discrete, colorful, beautiful little blocks of functionality. I'm going to pop open here another example here. No, it's not. That's not a good one. That's another one I already showed you. Pop up the calculator example. Here's a little more complicated one. The thing is that it's so abstracted out from any individual language because each block has no language built into it. It is simply a bit of functionality, such as setting a number, adding two different variables together, displaying a window. And these features, these concepts are not unique to any one language. And so they can be exported to any language you particularly like. So Mike asks, can you switch from visual to actual code? Kind of, sort of. So within Illumination, no, there is no code. There is no code. I think that's a very direct thing. However, when you export the project, let's say you build, here's a good example here. Let's build the desktop application for this calculator example. So it pops open this little window here. Let me go full screen so you can see this a little better. Here's a calculator example. Let's pop this open in gedit. And what we've got here is the Python code for the application. Now, this is all built in an extremely modular way. Every single function that you call is actually its own discrete function within Python. This means that if you want to go in there and you want to edit anything about the resulting application that you have built, you absolutely can. And it is a very, very simple process. It's just standard Python and PyGTK code. It's very, very clean, very, very bug-free, and very, very simple PyGTK code. But that's just PyGTK code. So if you want to, you absolutely can create little patches for it and extend it, your resulting application far beyond what maybe Illumination itself was able to create for you. Now, so the great thing here is this can be used to create applications, and creating applications are great. And here's like a little simple calculator I built. It does nothing fancy. It's just a calculator. You know, it's a calculator. But let's say you want to use this for prototyping. Well, you can hop on in here and go ahead and start laying out your user interface. And even if you don't attach any functionality to it, you have just, let's say, 4 or 5 different windows you want to design, and you want them all opened at certain times. You then could build your project, and you now have a Python GTK application for desktop or for Memo, or soon for websites that doesn't do anything, but has all the user interface already designed, already laid out, with all the convenience functions already created for you to call the code resulting from button clicks or text changes or what have you. So if you're looking for rapid prototyping, this is essentially the ultimate rapid prototyping tool that anyone has ever created, because we're awesome. And of course, you can assign actual functionality to it too, which is also a good point. The other side of things is the educational side. There are 2 aspects to the educational side of Illumination. One is that it's great to be able to use this sort of a tool to come up with new ways to teach people logic. You know, very simple logic, but how cause and effect relationships, basic programming concepts that are not specific to any one particular language, or just simply empowering kids to create presentations completely that have their own dynamic logic in them. These are, or interactive stories, choose your own adventures. These are all things that are very simple to do within Illumination. And so that becomes a great and powerful learning tool. But if you're learning about development specifically for a particular language, and we'll just talk about Python because it's right there. If you are trying to figure out how to make a button respond to click events in Python with using GTK, well, do it in Illumination, export it, and then ta-da, you've got the code in a very clean way. It's just the code that's required to do that thing and nothing else. And you can then use that to help teach yourself how to develop those bits of functionality in whatever language you export your Illumination project to. Scusi. So it's just very, very beneficial from that regard. Hold on. What do we got going here? Another thing, if your visual data is growing, can you zoom in or out to drag the screen further? Yes. So no. Currently, no. This is just kind of the area to work within. But the zoom functionality is something that we've been working on. Literally, so it's just going to be a small slider down here on the right-hand side where you just drag the slider and you can zoom your visual presentation in and out. That's, obviously you're not going to want to zoom way out on a project that's purely visual based, because in the end, all you're going to end up seeing are lots of tiny little colored blocks, which isn't really going to tell you a whole heck of a lot about the nitty-gritty of how your project functions. But it will give you an idea of general flow control. It'll give you an idea of the general layout of your application. And that's also why you'll notice that all the blocks have very unique colors, such as the green blocks are all number blocks, and the user interface blocks are all this kind of fancy, soothing blue color, and text are all kind of, well, text is purple. I'm just gonna call it like it is. Purple is text. So that kind of gives you that. One of the other things is just simple scrolling. Of course, we'll be adding scrolling here very, very shortly. That actually was working, and then it broke, and then we thought, well, we want people to focus on building applications that are easy to maintain now, and we wanted people's feedback on how much they are able to create within a single screen. A single screen application, from our point of view, is a great learning tool. Obviously, for a professional developer or even a kind of a pro hobbyist kind of a person, you're going to want much bigger canvases to work with. You're going to want an almost unlimited canvas to work with, and that of course is coming. But I wanted to see what people could create in a constrained area where they just couldn't get any bigger. And so basically it was limited only by the size of your screen. Now, and the result is that people can create quite a bit. We've gotten some fairly complex results back that honestly surprised even me. Some people are much, much better developers with Illumination than I am, apparently, at this point. How about making the work panel 3D, Stuart is asking. Not quite sure what you're asking there. Are you thinking more like effects and the like? Now, if any of you have actually tried this, you'll notice there's some nice transparency effects. So for example, some of those links behind there, you can, here, let's go like that. You can kind of see the links behind the actual blocks themselves. So it does have a certain level of... it does have a certain level of class and kind of sophistication to the look and feel. But it is distinctly very much a 2D workflow, and there's no real plans to making it making it multi-dimensional and making it 3 dimensions that way. But that is that is just not going to happen. But this does work pretty good for this point. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. But this is thanks for taking some time to kind of go through Illumination with me. Again, go over to radicalbreeze.com to take a look at this. This is definitely in very rapid development right now. For those of you who have been participating in the beta are probably well aware. Here's a great example. Someone is asking in the chat room, what about checkboxes, lists, and other UI components? Is there a roadmap? Oh, absolutely. In fact, in the next beta, I believe comes scroll bars. No, sliders and progress bars. I think is the next beta. I think checkboxes come. Was that beta 6? Something along those lines. The support for those controls already exists. We're just kind of rolling things out bit by bit, so everyone kind of tests everything to their max and kind of pushes it to the limit. But yeah, no, those are all coming. We will be having lots of UI controls added in, and lots of functional blocks will be added in over the coming days and weeks as well. So anyway, that's your kind of first look at Illumination. This is Illumination 1.0 Beta 4 you're seeing in front of you right now. Go ahead and go to radicalbreeze.com or lunduke.com for some more information on that. I should point out again, if you want to get the cheap version, and I'm saying this to you guys because you guys is my peeps, we're only selling the cheap version until 1.0 ships. You asked when is 1.0 shipping? 1.0 will probably ship later this week. We don't have a set date on it, but it's when when we feel it's ready and when our beta testers feel that it is ready as well. But we've probably got 2 betas left. But as you probably are aware, if you've been involved in the beta program, betas come about once a day. So there's not a whole lot of time to get the $29 version. So hop on that, because I would feel really, really bad if you guys were like, oh, that's really, really cool, and you didn't know that the price was going to go back up, and you waited and you had to spend like $70 more, and you guys are my buddies because you watch all of my shows and you love Jupiter Broadcasting shows, and then I feel like a jerk is what I would do here. So go ahead and grab it, take a look. Let us know some feedback. Also, there's a Facebook page. I believe it's just facebook.com/Illumination Software Creator. But there's links over on lunduke.com and radicalbreeze.com to that. If you want to chat with the team, which is, again, is basically is myself and one other dev, you can do so. And we're definitely open to feedback, definitely open to bug reports, suggestions, questions, and requests. And it would be awesome. That's all I got for this time, and we'll be doing these Coding with Bryans a little more regularly, just because, well, it's a fantastic show to sit around and listen to me chit chat with myself with Princess Leia headphones on. I put these on. I don't know why. I had too much to talk about today, so no one had time to call in. But I'm gonna next time we'll do a call-in show. I'm not sure what we'll talk about next time. Next time probably not gonna be Illumination Software Creator based, because come on guys, how much self-promotion can this guy do? This guy can do a lot of self-promotion. Hey Chris, how much self-promotion can I do?
A lot.
Chris says I can do a lot of self-promotion, but that's just ridiculous to do that much self-promotion. So we'll talk about something different next time. Maybe we'll talk about some JavaScript frameworks or something I've been working with, just to have a good time. All right, everybody, take care, and I'll see you either next week or the week after, or whenever we decide to do the next Coding with Bryan, probably pretty soon. Oh, by the way, hey Chris, what's this episode called? It's Season Awesome, episode. Rocky Illumination. That seems like something about this. It should be. Let's just call it Illuminated. All right, Season Awesome, episode Illuminated. All right, everybody, take care, and I'll see everyone some other time.